Yes, good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, the 18th of November. And so we're doing two things today. We're going to finish off a very short yet important part of the life in the ancient regime. And also, you see there, I have for you your the transatlantic economy and transatlantic economy terms. Okay, so make sure that you have those. I haven't put an assignment there for the terms, but I'll get around to that. And so let's have a look at, let's finish, shall we? Talk about Jews. One day we're going to have to talk about how it was that Jews came to live in Europe in such great numbers, how Jews no longer live no longer lived in large numbers in Palestine. And that actually goes back all the way to Rome. It's an interesting story, and I will tell you at a later date. Suffice it to say, though, that in 70 AD, the Jews were kicked out of what is now Palestine, or what is now Israel, by the Roman Empire, because it's a really interesting story. If you ever have time, you should look up something called Masada, Masada, one of the most intriguing stories in history. Which, like I said, when I have you guys in here, it'll be better to talk about it then. If talking on this little tiny camera doesn't help. But for the record, in 70 AD, Jews were kicked out of, literally, the Romans said, don't say you can't live, but you can't live here. And they kicked them out of Israel, and Jews were scattered in every direction. Some went to East India, Asia. Some went to Africa. In fact, when the state of Israel was created in 1948, and Jews began migrating in rather large numbers back to Israel, there was a group of these African people who looked African, they were from Ethiopia, and they were called the Falasha. And of course, a lot of the Jews were like, "Who are these people?" Sure enough, though, they not only spoke remnants of Hebrew, they practiced Judaism in all the customs, and the other Jews went, "All right, welcome home." Yeah, some went to south, but most, of course, went to the north. And of course, the country of biggest Jewish settlement was Russia, but they also settled in other parts of Europe as well. Okay. So yeah, although there were Jewish enclaves in the Netherlands and in England, most Jews lived in Eastern Europe. And going forward, yeah, that will be a thing. And the country that had the most Jews was, of course, Russia. And unfortunately, the country that Jews received their worst treatment was in Russia. And this, of course, yeah, prior to Holocaust, yeah. So the Jewish population of Europe was concentrated in Poland, Lithuania, and the Ukraine, where no fewer than 3 million Jews lived in the Ukraine. Catherine the Great, look what she did, specifically excluded Jews from a manifesto where she had welcomed other foreigners to Russia. Yeah, all you guys are welcome. We really want your contributions, unless you're Jews. Yeah, Catherine the Great, the enlightened despot. Jews dwelled in most nations without enjoying the rights and privileges of citizenship, except at this point in time, first the Netherlands, second Great Britain. Oliver Cromwell, thank you. One of the few things he did that showed an open-mindedness. No matter where they dwelled, Jews lived in distinct communities where they were secluded from non-Jews. Yeah, Jews couldn't live with non-Jews. Jews lived in these areas. Some of these areas were self-governing within a city. And these enclaves would be walled for the purposes of keeping Jews in. The Jews were looked upon as being, contaminated, dirty. And these areas, by the way, please know that The word ghetto is a word of Italian origin, and the ghetto was the place in the city that was least desirable to live. Normally, it was a place in the city that was lowest in elevation. And you say, why would that? Well, the lowest in elevation, the ground is going to be marshy. And not only that, um, they didn't have good sewer systems there. In fact, most people who had their sewage waste would dump it out in that. All streets had these little channel-like ditches, and they would dump their personal waste into those channel-like ditches. And when the rains came, the rain would wash it downhill. Guess what was downhill? Answer: the ghetto. And that's where Jews were consigned to live. So, Jews lived in these areas, some of whom were self-governing. In others, they lived under the stigma of discrimination from their government. And remember what Joseph II said that Jews didn't have to wear the yellow star, the Star of David, which of course represents Judaism, but it was painted yellow, which is an international, long recognized Western symbol meaning cowardice. Actually, in Eastern cultures, yellow is the color that you wear for celebration. In fact, in China, yellow is the color of the emperor. So, only England allowed Jews to mix with the mainstream. This period may have begun with the Spanish expulsion of Jews and is called the Age of the Ghetto. Some Jews were wealthy enough to finance rulers. In other words, they loaned money to rulers, and because of their continual support financially of these rulers, they were given a place at the court, a place where they could sit, and were called court Jews. Perhaps the most famous of these court Jews was Samuel Oppenheimer, who helped the Habsburg dynasty in their struggle against the Turks by loaning them money. However, many of these court Jews also got shafted. They would loan money to these people, and these people wouldn't pay back, and then they'd be like, okay, what are you going to do about it? Jew. And answer, yeah, nada. Part F. Contrary to the stereotype that many people have about Jews in our country, in Europe, the majority of Jews lived in poverty. I mean, they were discriminated against to begin with. They weren't allowed to participate in any guilds, any of the recognized labor that was available. In fact, once again, we've talked about how Jews found their way into banking because during much of the Middle Ages, the Roman Catholic Church frowned upon the loaning of money for interest. Well, Jews didn't have to obey that kind of stigma, and people needed to borrow money. And so a certain number of Jews were able to loan money and also to collect interest on that money. And also, as part of the deal of collecting interest, oftentimes jewelry, which the two words have nothing to do with each other, Jew and jewelry. I looked that up. Oftentimes, these crowned heads, these members of the nobility, et cetera, when they borrowed money from Jews, the only real collateral they had that was nice and compact was their jewelry. And they would give it to the Jews as collateral, and then, of course, their loan would fall through, and the Jews would keep the jewelry, and through that, Jews got into the business of cutting gems because you can't really sell a crown. There's not a big market for crowns or scepters out there that are made of precious metals and jewels. And so how do you make money? Answer, you simply take them apart, melt them down, cut the jewelry. And so, yeah, that's called jewelry, being a jeweler. And so, as it says there, they pursued money lending and also jewelry when they could, but most often Jews worked in the lowest rungs of the labor ladder, and they were the last hired, first fired. Until the last 2 decades of the 18th century, Jews who retained their religion, and many Jews went underground, meaning they converted or didn't convert. They acted like they converted to Christianity, but the Jews who didn't were subjected to various civil, religious, and social disabilities. Like I said, they could not work in the respectable jobs, and of course, they had to wear the star. They had to live, and so it was discrimination, uh, just like any other discrimination. They were regarded as socially and religiously inferior. Fact of the matter is, and this is why we need to have rap again. We need to have, before I would always in rap I would always show episodes of Rick Steves Europe, and in one episode he talks about Jews in Italy, and Jews lived in a wall compound that would have two gates, one gate at one end of the compound, another gate at the other end. But at the opening of each gate, right across the street from where Jews would enter and exit the city, there would be written in Yiddish, which is the language of Hebrew, written in Yiddish instructions for how Jews could convert to Christianity, Roman Catholicism, and sitting right outside of a Christian church, where they were saying, "Here, come on." They could also be required to listen to sermons that were insulting to their sensibilities. Okay, so tomorrow's Thursday. We will go into our new unit on the Atlantic economy, transatlantic economy, which I still think is a rather short unit. I hold out hope that we can finish before Thanksgiving. But on Friday, you guys have a test, and we're going to meet as a class, and we're going to look at paintings. Yeah, look at art. We need to have a sense of art in this class. And so, yeah, and of course, Friday you have your test. In the meantime, I am grading these LEQs, and they are riveting. Horton, you're so fun. But, like I said, I'm doing a favor for those losers in American History AP, because since you are learning the process now, you don't have to learn it next year when you take American History AP. And so with that, I think I'm going to go. I hope you all have had a good day. Take care.